Hey guys, Cedar here. This is going to be another one from the heart. Today I'm going to talk about my first time breaking through on DMT with the help of acid. Now, to give you guys a little bit of a setting, I was sitting in my living room completely by myself. I'd already done DMT probably about 40, 50 times by this point. I'd already done acid probably 5 to 6 times. Just within that week or within the past 2 weeks, I dropped acid twice. So I already had a small tolerance to acid at this point. My friend had loaded up a bowl of DMT. Now you might be like, what's a bowl of DMT? Well, he mixed weed, or he took weed and then put some DMT on top of that, and then put some weed on top of that. So then you're not burning the DMT, but you're also getting it hot enough to activate it, if you would like to say. Uh, he had found that smoking it with weed through a bowl was the best way for him to get the farthest. And by this point, he had already broken through about 3 or 4 times, maybe even more by that point. And I was really struggling with it. So I was willing to try smoking it through a bowl, since I had tried it multiple other ways by that point. So he loaded up the bowl of DMT. I believe he went to bed. And I'm sitting there. I've already dropped the acid. Uh, the visuals I'm getting off the acid are very minor. It's just more or less color shift. Colors are more vibrant. Colors are more obvious. And other than that, not really a whole lot was going on. So I hit the bowl of DMT. I'm sitting there. I'm thinking, why not? Why? I'm not getting a lot from the acid. I might as well just, fuck it, hit the DMT. So I hit the DMT. And if you've ever smoked weed, uh, you know how when you barely touch the lighter to the bowl and you get just like a little tiny chunk of weed that's caught and you get like a small hit off of it. That's what it was like off the DMT, because it, as I burned the DMT, it became wet. So because that's what happens, it melts down. So then it became wet. The whole bowl became wet. So I didn't really get a good hit. So I hit it. I pretty much light a little tiny chunk of weed. It burns down. That burns DMT with it. And I get my small hit. I inhale it, hold it, exhale it, and I'm sitting there. And I'm kind of just chilling. I'm kind of just going through some thoughts. Probably 30, 45 seconds have passed. And I'm sitting down looking at my table, looking downwards. And if you've ever seen Charlie Brown, how his shirt is yellow with the black stripes, it was just like that. It was like a column. Like, it's hard to explain. If you've ever seen like the old Terrence McKenna drawings, even though like it wasn't him that drew those, but like there were the faces that had like the columns that came up in the middle of it, and you could like see a bunch of faces on the column. That's what it was for me. It was just a column, but it was the Charlie Brown shirt. It was the yellow and black stripes, and they were coming from the top down. It was being pulled down. It was multiple stripes of it, and that's what caught my attention. It was up in my upper right corner of my vision, and it was like, what are you doing? Come on, pay attention. So that happens. It's such a small little visual, and I look up to see it because I was like, what the hell is that? And I look up to see it, and all of a sudden the whole room changes. The whole room changes. And all of a sudden I was pretty much in another world. I remember looking at the Mac Miller song. I believe it was Stay. And I love Mac Miller so much, and I loved tripping and watching music. But with this trip, that was so secondary. I know that it was super crazy colored. It was not the normal colors for that video. But I was not paying attention to that. So I look at the Mac Miller video. I'm like, that's crazy. Moving on. So I move on, and the best way I can describe it, it was like a shower curtain came across my vision. It came from the left all the way to the right, from the wall all the way across my whole vision, and it looked like a shower curtain, like as if it was made out of glass or plastic. And on the shower curtain, it had a bunch of individual squares, and on each one of those squares was a repeating pattern. Each one of the squares had the same pattern. I couldn't even remotely tell you what it was. So the curtain comes across my vision, and it's almost like I get zoomed into it. I all of a sudden I'm looking at an individual square, and I'm able to see the pattern really well. I'm able to see the shine of it. I'm able to see the color from the glass plastic reflecting light. I was able to see in really good detail one of those little squares, and then it kind of zooms me back out. That was almost kind of like it was out of body to an extent. I didn't really feel like I was in my body. I felt like I was just floating there looking at the square. So anyways, I come back, I'm in my body, and I'm looking at this curtain, and it's waving, and I just thought it was the most beautiful thing ever. And part of that also, I almost forgot about this, was a bunch of little squares. There was a bunch of little squares everywhere across my whole field of vision. They were all little tiny little squares, and they were all filled with different information. All of it information. What do I mean by that? I mean, like, of course, visuals, but you got to think about it in terms of like your brain is a computer. When you're intaking information, when you're looking at something, you're intaking information. So each one of those little tiny squares had their own set of information, had their own set of visuals. And there's probably 1,000 of them if I had to guess. I couldn't even remotely begin to count them. I couldn't even remotely begin to draw out how many squares I've seen. And some of them would overlap each other, and where they would overlap would also have its own information. And they were all flipping, like, rapidly. If anybody knows when I say a rapid changing trip, it's the visuals will change as fast as you can blink. You can blink and it'll change, and it'll just keep changing on you. And that's what it did on that breakthrough. All those little tiny individual squares were rapidly changing with different information from any of the other ones. So that's going on. I'm looking at the curtain. The curtain looks like it's in front of all of that. And I was so dumbfounded by how beautiful it was. I was just so happy that it happened because, like I said, by this point I was struggling with breaking through. And so when it happened, I was incredibly grateful. I was incredibly thankful. I remember saying that. I was just like, thank you so much. And it's so beautiful. And it was so beautiful, I just wanted to cry. I was like, thank you, I just want to cry. And as I said that, it just started to flow. I just started crying, but it was like a happy cry. And as I do that, as the tears start to run down my face, the curtain where the squares met, the individual sections where they met, lasers would shoot out from those individual sections, and they would hit me on my face and on where I was crying. And so I'd cry, and a laser would hit me, and a tear would fall, and it wouldn't stick to my face. It was just a perfect bead, just fall straight down. And I would get shot on my shirt, and it felt like it felt like I was, being touched by these lasers. And I'm crying, and I'm just saying, thank you. This is so beautiful, thank you. And I just keep saying that, and I'm crying. And eventually, as the DMT wore off, the curtain started to fade away until it was gone. And all the squares lost all their information and eventually disappeared themselves. And I came out of it, and I was still just crying. I was just like, thank you so much. That's what I needed. Thank you. And it was more or less like that breakthrough was just, it was what I was looking for. It was almost like DMT was like, this is what you wanted. Here it is. And so I was incredibly thankful. And just like in my previous videos, I immediately wanted to go back into it. I immediately wanted to do it again. So I'm coming out of it. I'm still high. I'm still super high, for the record. Like I said in one of my previous videos, I'm not really getting visuals anymore, but the internal feeling of how your body feels, how your mind feels, how your thoughts are, that was still I was still high on DMT, for sure. I immediately wanted to do it again. So I picked up the bowl. I hit it probably another 3 or 4 times, and nothing really happened. Nothing. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened, and it's because I didn't get far. I wasn't supposed to go far the second time. I broke through, and that was it. DMT had given me what I wanted. I would say that pretty much covers the first time that I had broken through. I think I got all the details. So if you guys like this video, please like, comment, subscribe. Please let me know what you guys think. If you guys have had your own experiences like this, please let me know. If you guys want to hear anything, hear me talk about anything in the future, I'd love to hear it. Other than that, I hope everybody has a great day, and I'll see you next time.